pick them up later. The presenter will also ask you questions as you go along. Please note that this presentation will be recorded, so if you leave your camera and microphone on, you may appear in the recording. Please take this time to change your name and/or turn off your camera if you would not like to appear in the recording. So the next presenter will introduce herself.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Sarah, and welcome to Leave Me Alone, I'm Reading. Tips to create a reading wonderland. My name is Kim Bernard, and I'm the Regional Vice President for Teacher Created Materials. We're located in Huntington Beach, California, in the USA. I am the wife of Bob Bernard. He is the love of my life. We've been married 40 years as of July 25th. We are the parents of two wonderful adult young men. Those are the two boys on the outside of that picture, and we really enjoy those girls they bring to the family. But probably the best part of our life right now is we became grandparents. We are known as Grammy and Pops, and this is Wyatt William Bernard. He is our first grandchild. So that's who I am. And Teacher Created Materials is a company that is 45 plus years old. The center woman in the picture is our founder and CEO. Her name is Rochelle Cracchiolo. And Rochelle was a teacher just like I was. And she found that she had lots of gaps and started writing her own lessons and eventually selling those lessons. When she started Teacher Created Materials in her garage, she had two young little girls. But I can assure you those girls have grown up because those are the two women on either side of Rochelle, and they are the president and vice president of Teacher Created Materials. One of the things that we do, and we do very strongly, is everyone in our company that creates materials is a teacher. And we live by one vision and one vision only, and that is to create a world in which children love to learn. So let's get started. We've got some goals to cover today. We're going to take a look and explore what this whole classroom library is all about and how important it is in the relationship to reading. We're going to look for guidelines for you as a teacher to identify what is going to be, how do you pick books that go into your classroom library? And this could be your home library if you are, teaching from home as well. And then we'll also discover how to use classroom libraries effectively. But I want to begin by opening up the chat box. Would you please go in the chat box and tell me something that you are really good at? I want you to tell me something you do better than anyone else you know. Maybe it's cooking a good meal. Maybe it's making a great cup of tea. I like Anthony. Reading to participating in conferences, swimming, reading to kids. Fantastic. Reading comics. Okay. Oh, Zalu, I like what you're saying about storytelling. Teaching, yeah, yoga, friend of mine. Love it, love it. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close the chat and let's just take a look at why I asked you that question. One of the questions I'm going to ask you is, how did you get so good at what you know? How did you get good at yoga? How did you get good at swimming? Well, my guess is you participated in one of the in the 10,000 hour rule. Now, on the screen, you're going to see Malcolm Gladwell. He is the author of a book called Outlier. And Gladwell highlights the 10,000 hour rule. And basically what that is in order to get really good or become an expert, to achieve mastery of complex skills, you need to intensely practice 10,000 hours, or roughly it takes at 4 hours a day, 10 years to become an expert. So let's just compare. Let's take a look at some present day gifted geniuses. And let's ask ourselves, how long did it take them to get 10,000 hours? Let's start with Bill Gates. He's the co-founder of Microsoft, the Microsoft Corporation, and he's one of the richest men in the world. He put in over 1,500 hours over a 7-month period of time just practicing coding. When did he reach his 10,000 hours? He was 21. How about the Beatles? Love that music. And John Lennon and Paul McCartney were the biggest part of that song group. They sold over 1 billion musical records, tapes, and CDs in their time together. They reached their 10,000 hours at age 20. Now let's take a look at Tiger Woods. Tiger Woods, one of the best golfers in the world. He is the first golfer ever to hold all 4 professional major championships at the same time. He was given a golf club at the age of 2 and competed in his first golf competition at the age of 3. He got his 10,000 hours at age 12. Hello, that's pretty impressive. Now, when we think about getting kids to read, it's a little bit of a tug of war, trying to get them off those devices and into a good book. But if we take a quote from author Kate DiCamillo, she says reading shouldn't be presented to children as a chore or a duty, but rather it should be offered to them as a precious gift. So let's take a look at our first tip. How do we give that gift? Well, first of all, we know anytime we're going to do anything, it's always more fun when you get to pick what you spend your time doing. So our first tip is, how do we get kids to pick something that's really for your enjoyment, something to read? Well, first of all, we have to say, you can pick anything you want to read, and there's no book report. No, teachers. There's no looking at vocabulary, no note taking. There's no quiz. You just get to read for pure enjoyment. And by the way, they're going to be practicing. So if we can empower our children to pick whatever they want to read and not put any strings attached to it, we're probably going to take that first step into getting them to enjoy and do that self-selection. All right. Well, you know what? The big question is, when, where, and how are we going to motivate our students to read? And sometimes this can be difficult, but the key to success is establishing some type of routine, some type of organization. So, tip number 2, we want to provide a structure to the time students can read independently. Now, certainly, if your child wants to go out and read on the swing, that's great. Go to the roof, that's great. But when we're in a classroom, it's a little more structured. So the first thing we want to do is figure out, what are we going to call this time? And I love Jim Trelease. He is a read aloud expert, and he has great acronyms or sayings of what he calls independent reading time. SSR, sustained silent reading. USSR, universal sustained silent reading. Or how about DEAR, drop everything and read. My personal favorite, DIRT, daily individual reading time. And let's not forget SWIRT, sustained, quiet, uninterrupted individual reading time. It's quite the mouthful. Whatever it is, one of the things, again, I love to do as a teacher is let the kids pick what they want to call it. And of course, I always did get DIRT somehow in there. So let's go to our chat once again. And I'd like you to tell me if you have a name for what you call individual reading time with your students. Maybe you already have something set up. Or what would you call it if you had to make it up right now? Go to the chat, tell me about it. Discovery to share with others. Thank you, Anthony. I know you all want to use dirt. I got it. All right. Well, whatever you choose to name your independent time, you're going to need a little guidance. When we set kids off, many times they will decide that they're going to do something besides reading. So I always like to give them some guidelines. So what would be the first one? Well, if they're going to move around in the classroom and get out of their desk, they have to find a spot where they're going to sit and be uninterrupted by any other activities. So if they're going to stay in their desk, great. If they're going to go to the floor, they're not moving 12 times. All right. They have to record what they're reading. So I always gave my students a reading record that they would record the pages that they were reading. That was the only string attached, but they had to give whatever they were reading a fair shot. What does that mean? They can't open a book and look at the first page and close the book. They have to read at least one page, but there is an exit strategy. If after 2 of our sustained reading times, they decide they hate the book, they can make a new choice, but they have to give it a good shot. So they find the spot right away, they record the pages, and they have to at least read one page, and they can change the book if they so desire. All right, tip number 3. What time of day do we decide to do this in? Well, many times I was running a 3-ring circus. I was meeting with students and the rest of the students were doing something independently. Well, that is a good time for independent reading time. So feel free when you're meeting with a small group that the rest of the class is reading independently. Or I've done it this way, where we drop everything and we read for the next 15 minutes. So the whole class does it at one time. I have been in schools where the entire school drops everything at the same time and reads, including the principal. Now, in addition, we need to have a variety of books, but we also need to have a clear and defined in and out process. We can't just have books thrown at the bookshelf. So we've got to have an in and out process. We need to have labeled books. So if you're using ER and you want your students to use those graded readers, you've got them identified, and you need space for students to go. And I would say you don't want to have space for, probably 4 at a time can go to that very special blanket. Now, when do we do this? Well, some teachers do it immediately after lunch or recess. Some teachers do it as they transition between lessons, especially content areas. But no matter when you're having that independent reading time, you need to also model that independent reading. Why? You're not only showing and modeling reading can be so enjoyable, but you're also giving them a very clear picture of what sustained independent reading looks like. You're their greatest model. All right, now we're going to provide that structure. But one of the biggest questions I always have to answer is, how much time do I really need? Well, this is really going to be determined by the age. So we don't ask a first grader to read for an hour. That's just ridiculous. So the amount of time really is dependent on the level of the age and the skill and stamina of your students. As early readers, they may start with 5 minutes. Great time to start. And that could be, for your early independent young readers, they're just taking 5 minutes and looking at a book. As they grow in that stamina, you want to build that time. So over maybe 10 weeks, you'll add more time, maybe 2 minutes per week, with the idea that as you get up in grades, it is a great thought to be able to give your students 30 minutes. Now, again, I would never do that with my first graders. Maybe towards the end of the year, we get up to 15 minutes. But certainly if I'm teaching 5th grade, 6th grade middle school, 30 minutes is very reasonable. All right. So we've explored the importance of the classroom library and its relationship to reading achievement. We've identified the guidelines for a quality classroom library. But now it's time to discover what your classroom library looks like and what you can do to effectively, increase reading activity with independent reading. So let's define what makes a classroom library a literacy-rich environment. Well, first of all, your classroom library isn't just about literacy. It really needs to support reading and writing in and out of school, which means you're going to need a wide variety of types of reading. So I've got another question for you at the chat. Oh, excuse me, we need to definitely cover all different types of content area and interests. All right, let's chat. I have a guessing game for you now. I'd like you to go into the chat and tell me, in a classroom, whether it be, or in your library, how many books do you think you need? So I'm going to open up the chat, take a wild guess. Oh, 1 million. I like that, Anthony. Any other guesses? How many books do you think really need to be in a classroom library or a home library? Ooh, I've got, Ida says 100 to 300. The more, the better. I love that. 500. Good, Ying. All right, you ready? Okay, let's close the chat and find out what the answer is. How many books? At least 10 to 20 per student. So I want you to keep that in your mind, that per student, ideally, and remember, they need to be a wide variety of topics. Now, let's talk about this, because you know what, as a classroom teacher, every day, all day, I wanted to use trade books. I wanted to use fiction. Why? Because it's fun. It's a story. I like it. How many of you, raise your hand if you too love to teach fiction? I'm going to guess the majority of you. But let's take a reality check, my friends. 80% of what our students are going to do in their real life is going to be informational, nonfiction text. That's what they're going to be reading. Think of your phone. I know. Do the directions ever start with once upon a time? They do not. They are all about informational text. And the strategies for comprehension of nonfiction are very much different than the strategies for fiction. So this is another thing to consider strongly as you're developing that library and what books you're going to choose. So what makes up a classroom library? What is going to create a literacy-rich environment? Well, for our very young English learners, I like wordless books. They're easily translated. That's a joke. What I love about a wordless book is the story can be different every time you open those pages. What we want to get out of our students is that they tell the story. They use their oral language and their vocabulary that they're practicing in telling something new about what they see on the page. Don't underestimate the strength of a wordless book. I use them all the way up to 5th grade, 6th grade, 7th grade with my students, especially in writing activities. Wordless books have power. But I also love big books. A book that is big, usually they're all in a rhyming sense. And so we get to get a lot of phonemic awareness going on with our students. Somebody in the chat talked about loving and being an expert at comics. Well, you know something, graphic novels absolutely are a way to go with students. We want to pull that in and use as many graphic novels as we can. But one of the things that we really find that our students love is series books. Now, I know you know series books like Captain Underpants and the trade books, but let's take a look at a series in nonfiction. One of the things we do really well, and we've had a long partnership with at Teacher Created Materials, is with Time for Kids. Now, Time for Kids series covers all kinds of different content areas, from everything from character building to science topics to mathematical topics to STEM topics. But what is Time for Kids? In a classroom setting, many teachers subscribe to this little magazine. It's a paper magazine. It comes out once a week, and it always has really great articles. Well, Teacher Created Materials has had a relationship, a partnership with Time for Kids for over 15 years. We buy the archived text and photographs from these great magazines, and we build leveled readers. They're called Time for Kids. Teachers look at those and they say, my kids love that magazine. They're going to love these books. And they do. What's so unique about these series is that we build them in trios. We build them in groups of 3. And those 3 books are going to have a shared theme. What do we know about that? Well, if we ask ourselves, what are the standards out there? One of the things that teachers are asked to do is really instruct students on how to build knowledge. Building knowledge doesn't come from one source. That's one of the fallacies of a textbook. We don't want just one place to go for our information. So take a look at these trios on the screen right now. Each of the trios is going to be at one reading level. So the student gets multiple times to read at that level and read at their interest. So for instance, a career builder trio at the bottom, I can read about what is it like to be an animator? Maybe I'll go to work for Disney. Well, what if I want to be a doctor? I can read about what ER doctors, emergency room doctors do. And let's not forget the police. We've got a whole book on what do the police do, all written at the same reading level in this series of Time for Kids. Now, what I also love is how we take those topics and make them very kid-centric. Kids are going to see themselves and the things they like to do. They're going to see contemporary issues. We don't shy away from them. We're going to talk about, you're going to get in a fight with your friend. How do you fight fair? What is the pros and cons, the good and the bad of having a cell phone, especially with a middle schooler? And then what happens? How do we make things right if we do have problems? I like the inspirational stories we tell because we always tell them through the lens of the child. And you're going to see lots and lots of diversity in this series in Time for Kids. Now, what I want you to know is Time for Kids K through 5, kindergarten, all the way through 5th grade. And keep in mind, your kinder is going to have those wordless books that, like I said, have lots of power. There's over 180 titles in English in these grade bands and reading bands. But we didn't forget you that teach middle school or grades 6th, 7th, and 8th. We've got time informational text because let's face it, at these grades, they're not kids anymore. So time informational text, this series will take you all the way through middle school. Now, I don't want you to think that Teacher Created Materials doesn't like fiction. We do. In fact, your library should be made up about 40 to 50% of fiction. And at Teacher Created Materials, we've got you covered with a variety of fiction titles in that kindergarten through 5th grade. So you've got a lot to choose from. But we've done some really hard work for you. Many times as a classroom teacher, I wanted to find leveled readers that had both fiction and nonfiction, but they were on a similar topic. Well, at Teacher Created Materials, we did that pairing for you. Here you see on your screen just one example where we've taken the nonfiction time for kids about mysteries and given you fiction that also has mystery stories. We've done that hard work for you. Is that something that you think you'll enjoy, having a little extra time? Well, if you think that this is going to be a great way to save time, I want you to shout it out. You can go ahead and take a break. Stand up and shout, I want more time. All right, Anthony, you're my biggest fan. I love it. All right, let's talk about disguised learning. This is one of the most favorite things I like about a good classroom library. It's got to have some disguised learning. So imagine having a book in your library on world landmarks, things like the pyramids in Giza. But wait a minute, this book is about adding and subtracting. What? It's a math reader. In fact, in this particular series that we have, we take real life situations and we do the math. So you're going to see, you'll read a little bit, and remember, it's a leveled reader, and you'll do a little math. Now, wouldn't this make perfect sense if you were in 3rd grade and you were planning a birthday party? Well, you're going to have to figure out how to divide that beautiful cake. So we take a real life situation, throw a little math at it. How about toilets? The history, a hidden world of toilets. What better topic to talk about the math concept of volume? And I love this one in particular, skyscrapers. You've got them all over. What a great way to see real application of the concept of area. Now, I had this marvelous opportunity. Thank you, Ying. I had this marvelous opportunity to actually visit Abu Dhabi. And while I was driving there, we passed this building. And I looked out the window and screamed, wait a minute, that building is in one of the Teacher Created Materials books. So it's an architectural feat to build a building in the shape of a circle. I know you know that. But in the back of the book that this skyscraper, this particular building is shown, there's a problem-solving activity, a thinking activity. And in this case, they're asking the reader to become an architect and to design a whole floor in a skyscraper. So you might ask yourself, what would I put on my floor if I got to build a skyscraper? I'm thinking I'd put a swimming pool. All right, let's talk about another really strong partnership that Teacher Created Material has, and that is with the Smithsonian Institute. I just want to share with you that the Smithsonian is the largest museum in the world. It is located in Washington, D.C., and if you go and visit it, what you are going to find is there are 19 different world-class museums, everything from galleries to gardens to the National Zoo. And my friends, if we ever get to travel again and you get to Washington, D.C., every single one of these is free. So What is this all about? Well, this is where we keep our national treasures, like the Hope Diamond. So I just want you to know, Ying, I did ask for that for my anniversary. It hasn't shown up yet, but our editors went to the Smithsonian and they worked with the educators at the Smithsonian, the scientists, as well as all of the other educators at the Smithsonian. And we took a look at that exhibit where they have the Hope Diamond, and we wrote a book on the science of gems. The Space Shuttle Discovery is housed at the Smithsonian National Air and Space Museum. And when our editors went and saw that exhibit, they wrote a book called Designing a Shuttle. But here's my favorite. When they went to the zoo, they met Bebe. Bebe is a panda, and she's part of the a partnership that we have with China. So Bebe was born at the Smithsonian at our National Zoo, and at 4 years old, she was returned to China and now lives in China. But before she left, we wrote a book for the kindergartners called A Den for Bebe. It's so fun and it's so doggone cute. Now, what's so special about these? Well, this is one of my favorite, is a book, and it's from the 5th grade, and it's on making a mummy. Now, all of these books that I'm showing you that we've partnered with the Smithsonian are what we call STEAM readers. And within each of the pages, as the pages are turned, we are going to highlight science, technology, engineering, art, and mathematics. So for instance, we are going to see the science in making a mummy on how those ancient Egyptians were able to keep the decay away, and which led them to creating airtight seals in those pyramids so long ago. We're going to look at technology as it's highlighted as students learn that now they can do a CT scan on mummies, and they can learn so much more and build 3D models of what that actual mummy looked like with skin on. Using a computer model, they can go into the rooms, and the engineers were able to figure out how those seals really were airtight. And art, how about the hieroglyphics found in those pyramids? They were on the walls and columns and tombs where the stories were told about anyone that was buried in the tomb. That's worth 1,000 tales. And lastly, how about that mathematics those ancient Egyptians used to build perfectly square bases for those pyramids? Making a mummy takes that STEAM element and helps our students see those real live applications. But what you'll also find in the back of every one of those Smithsonian readers is something we like to call the STEAM Challenge. It is unique, and what it does is it gives students, the reader, a real life problem to solve, and it moves them through the engineering design process. So there's so much more, and so much more to engage when you take a look at what's in this type of book that can be sitting in your classroom library. But you know what? It has to be real. So one of the things I love is your classroom library can be the gateway to that child's 10,000 hours. Because in the back of each of these Smithsonian readers, you're going to find career advice. And that career advice is given by the scientists, educators, the anthropologists, the zookeeper, all from the Smithsonian. Now, what is this going to lead you to? This is going to lead you, when you add this variety of readers into your classroom library, you're going to start the dreams that can lead to the next 10,000 hour genius. And it all begins when they open the book. So I want to thank you for all of your time. We do have plenty of time for any questions. I'm going to go ahead and turn my video back on. There I am. Hello, everybody. And I'd be happy, Sarah, if you have any questions that popped up in the chat, or if anyone would like to ask a question at this moment.
So thank you for your great presentation. In the chat's mostly comments if you want to look at them later. So if anyone has any questions.
Excellent, excellent. It's been a pleasure, everyone. Thank you so much. It got me up and going this morning, and I'm really excited to have been with you today. Feel free, my email is, hang on, I'll put my email up. And if you have any questions, please feel free to, there it is. There's my email. If you have any questions, please feel free.
You have one in the chat now.
Oh, yes, I see that. The book series are wonderful. I would say even an adult. Yes. I can tell you every time a new book is published at Teacher Created Materials, I learn something more. So absolutely, these are great, great books, whether you are a child or an adult.
Another question is from, sorry if I don't pronounce this right, Ying Kyo. It's really difficult to create reading materials for S's. Any suggestions?
For S's?
Students.
Okay, it's really difficult to create. Well, I would say you definitely need to have a good foundation. And so what we try to look at Teacher Created Materials is, we start everything through literacy. So if we can get our students, if we can get our teachers to use a great book, we can then pull together lots of different activities. And at teachercreatedmaterials.com, we have tons of activities for teachers.
Does anyone else have any more questions?
Okay. All right, folks. Well, thank you so much. As I said, here is my email. Please feel free to directly email me. Who said they want the pillow? So cute. All right, folks. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. Sarah, do we just hang on, or what do we do?
You got another question. It just came in. If you want to answer it, or if you want to go to a breakout room, either is fine.
Is there hang on.
Is there any resources like teaching plan coming with the book for teachers?
Absolutely. Every single book can be bought with a lesson plan. So, and that lesson plan will take you from everywhere, the comprehension before, during, and after the reading. There'll be vocabulary as well as a writing prompt. And then we also incorporate all of the varieties of content areas. So if the book is a STEAM reader, there's going to be, like I said, that STEAM challenge will have lessons that direct the teachers. Thank you, Irene.
So you have a few minutes left. It's up to you if you want to hang out here, if you have any other questions, or if you want to go to a breakout room early.
I'll be happy to go to the breakout room. That's great if anyone wants to join me.
Okay, so thank you for your great presentation. If we can give Kim some applause and say thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
And you know how to find your way back, right?
I think so. Okay. Yes. Okay. Thank you.
So if anyone wants to discuss anything further with Kim, you can join the breakout rooms and she will be there for a bit.
come.
We're still live streaming.
Let's see.
And the next presentation will start at 8:30.
So Sarah, how many minutes away from now? I'm sorry.
20 minutes at the end. Wendy says she's going to take care of the end, and I'll duck out whenever she comes back.
Okay, thank you. I was a bit to calculate the time difference. the time difference. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. It'll start in 19 minutes.
It'll start in the next 90 minutes. 19 minutes. Oh, yeah, that's right. Okay.
Yeah,
So,
we finished this one a bit early, so there's still a bit of lag, but the next one will start in 19 minutes. And I think that one is last presentation on the night about graded readers as intralingual literary translations.
yeah.
Long title.
Quite interesting. Yeah. Okay. That's clear.
Where are you?
I'm connecting from India now.
Oh, where in India?
I'm in the south from Hyderabad.
I've heard of it, but I've never been to India before.
Okay. Yeah. Well, it's not that one of those famous places, but when it comes to the like the IT cities, this is like, okay, one of the second best now, with the size of number of IT companies operating from here. It has some history as well, but not as famous as Delhi and Taj Mahal and Jaipur, Jodhpur. That north area is, I think, has much more, is well known when it comes to the whole traveling. When you look at it from a traveling point of view, but I think there's a lot more heritage. Yeah.
You have the
Tasty
shaman.
food.
Paul has been there. Paul, weren't you there in India?
Yes, twice to Hyderabad. The shaman
right.
with the famous tower.
Charminar. The Charminar. Yeah. True.
Everybody should get there once. It's amazing. What's the fort outside the city?
Golconda.
Yes. Yeah. Very interesting place.
Sure. I mean, actually, these are kept they kind of low profile touristic places, or they're not that famous, when you compare it with, because Delhi was the capital city of all the dynasties, the Arabic dynasties, when India was under the Islamic rule. So that's why Delhi has a lot more famous monuments.
Yeah.
But Charminar, Golconda, they only belong to just one dynasty. But they're very friendly. They don't have too many tourists as you would find in Delhi. So I personally enjoy these.
Yeah.
Oh, back here.
I'd like to visit someday just to go eat around India. Go check out the spices and things like that, because different areas, different cuisines, right?
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. We are not like